Hello and welcome to Clear Skies Ahead's very first webinar. My name's Dr. Rob Zeglin. I'll be your host for the next hour. We're so glad that you could join us. Just so that everyone knows, today's presentation is being recorded so that we can share it at a later date. Clear Skies Ahead was founded with one mission: to support the health of aviation professionals and enhance the safety of our national airspace system through research, education, and community support. We're dedicated to fostering a culture of wellness within the aviation community. Through education and advocacy, we empower professionals to recognize symptoms early and seek the care they need without stigma. Today's webinar is made possible thanks to the generous support of our donors. We hope to continue offering these events regularly. If you'd like to support our mission, we'll post a donation link in the chat. You can also visit our website at www.clearskiesaheadnonprofit.org for more information. If you find today's webinar valuable, we encourage you to spread the word and share these events with your colleagues and networks. We're very excited to partner with Emerald Mental Health for today's presentation. Our speaker is Reini Thijssen, an independent clinical mental health counselor. Originally from the Netherlands, Reini pursued her mental health career in the United States and is the founder of Emerald Mental Health, a practice dedicated to supporting aviation professionals. Reini provides online mental health support to adults and couples navigating challenges such as anxiety, burnout, grief, and stress. Since 2019, she's authored monthly mental health columns for Aero Crew News, focusing specifically on the aviation community. She also leads the NGPA CARES team, a peer support program offering mental health resources to NGPA members. Reini's unique combination of personal aviation experience and professional therapeutic training makes her especially equipped to support those with sensitive aeromedical concerns. Everybody, join me in welcoming Reini Thijssen.
Hi, Rob. Thank you so much for that kind introduction, and I'm so happy to be here. So thank you, Clear Skies Ahead, for also having me today. I will go ahead and start sharing my screen. Let's see. All right. Let's go. One more, and then I'm almost there. Rob, can you give me a heads up if everything's looking fine on your end?
Looks perfect.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's start off with, again, thank you for having me today and for being here all. I really appreciate your time also being here. And first off, before we start today, I just want to ask you to reflect very shortly on what it is that you're hoping to get out of today's session. What made you sign up to actually be here today? You can also see on your screen right now a poll coming up that also asks you the same question. This is all anonymous. I would love it if you fill it out there, but also feel free to just think about it for a minute to reflect for yourself or write it even down for yourself. Maybe you're here because you want to learn more about resiliency. Maybe you're not exactly sure what resiliency is. Maybe you're going through something that you maybe want to have some extra support for, or you know someone who's going through something that maybe you can help with these tools that I'm going to provide with today as well. So feel free to answer that in the box if you want to. I can't see the answer right now, but thank you for submitting it. If you did, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. So, well, actually, Rob, you did a great job for introducing me, but I'll shortly add to that. So indeed, I'm originally from the Netherlands, so also English is my second language. Don't judge me if I make any mistakes. I completed my counseling degree here in the United States, and I started immediately also working with pilots and started my own company, Emerald Mental Health, indeed, with helping pilots and aviation professionals in general. I currently live in Colorado, and I have two amazing dogs. In the picture, you also see my dog Pavlov, who's an avid general aviation enthusiast as well. So it's a lot of fun to do that with my dogs as well every once in a while. So this is a QR code that also adds my phone number and Emerald Mental Health's website directly to your phone. So feel free to scan that. I'll leave it up here for a second. So Emerald Mental Health provides independent mental health care for pilots and aviation professionals since 2021. And I've designed this free training or webinar today to help add to your mental health toolkit to navigate life in and outside of aviation with a little bit more resiliency, hopefully. And with learning how to improve our resiliency, we can hopefully identify stress a little bit earlier. We can shift from reactive to proactive coping. And I provide access to some resources that hopefully will support long-term well-being by building some extra resiliency. Then a few of my partners, I just heard Rob also introducing them for me real quickly, so that's really awesome. Thanks again, Clear Skies Ahead, for having me today. I am trying to be a part of the solution by reducing the stigma, by providing education and support through Clear Skies Ahead and the other partners that I work with as well. So indeed, with the NGPA Cares, I lead the mental health NGPA Cares team, which is a peer support program for the National Gay Pilots Association. With the LPA, I am setting up a program to lower the bar for seeking support within that community as well. And then, of course, Aerocrew, you can find some monthly articles in that magazine, so you'll see me pop up there every once in a while as well. So when we start talking about resiliency, what is it actually? What is resiliency? And I want you to think about the time when you started flight training, for example. And do you remember maybe the first bad day that you had during that flight training? Maybe it was a hard landing, or it was a failed check ride, or a moment where you just felt like life was overwhelming during that training. Then I want you to think about where you are today. And to me, that means resiliency. It's what eventually gets you back into the flight deck, what helps you learn from these setbacks, and that helps you keep moving forward. And that's what we're going to talk about today as well. How can we increase that resiliency with intention? And I want to make a small side note here right away as well, that for some people, resilience can feel like a very heavy term. Sometimes it sounds like people are saying, like, just be resilient. That's not what we're trying to say here. We're not trying to say just be resilient in the sense of like, just get over it. It's not simple. Resiliency is not simple. We don't want to dismiss your pain or whatever it is what you're going through right now. It's okay if a part of you doesn't want to be or can't be resilient at this time and space yet, especially after something hard, or if you feel tired after something very difficult has happened, or other strong emotions, like I said, like hurt or anger. Those feelings are valid. And before we can move forward, we often need some time to feel actually what we're feeling, whether that is that sadness, frustration, even rage. And resiliency is not about skipping those feelings. It is about moving through them at your own pace and then finding your way forward when you're ready. And resiliency is also not about avoiding stress or pressure or challenges, because unfortunately, life is not that way. We cannot always avoid it. It is actually about building the capacity to recover, adapt, and to stay steady then under pressure when something comes our way. So resiliency has two important functions to help maintain your mental well-being. It acts like a buffer, first of all, and it helps as a buffer against your stresses and challenging experiences. And secondly, resiliency supports the recovery of your mental well-being when it's being impacted. It helps you bounce back, so to speak, after a setback. So another example how I can describe resiliency is that you might have when you're starting your flight of the day, you may have a clear destination and a flight plan, but you hope for smooth skies and a direct route. But just like life, flying doesn't always go as planned, and sometimes storms roll in, or turbulence hits, or there's an ATC outage. And so maybe you have to reroute or delay your arrival, or maybe you have to fly around the storm. And these are the decisions that you're making to adapt and to stay safe and to keep you in the plane moving forward. And so in this instance, resiliency is the ability to stay calm, to assess these conditions, and to choose the best path forward, even if it wasn't necessarily the route that you wanted in the first place. So to give you a little bit of a visualization, I can best illustrate this with an image of a spring. And the spring is representing the ability to cope. And in the first picture, you see a weight being placed on the spring. The weight is the setback that we're experiencing. And the weight is being placed on that spring. And when that weight is being added, the spring gets pushed down. And this shows how challenge or a difficult situation can affect your mental well-being and functioning. So the resiliency is a buffer, and it helps determine how far the spring gets pushed down. If your resiliency is then strong, the spring won't compress as much, meaning the impact on you is also less. At some point, the spring stops compressing. That's the tipping point, and that's the maximum impact of that setback, and you've hit your limit. You will bounce back after that. Like slowly, the spring will start rising again in the last picture, and this is where resiliency shows up. What does it look like? Usually, it can be the fact that you return to your normal state, like how it was previously before the difficult situation happened. We call this recovery. Or what also can happen is that you grow stronger from the setback, and that's causing growth. And also, stronger is meaning that you can be bouncing back easier, and hopefully also next time when something occurs, it can go maybe even quicker as well. However, sometimes when bouncing back is hard, if something really intense happens or you have multiple weights actually being placed on your spring or on your resiliency, the spring might stay pushed down for a longer time. And this doesn't mean that you failed or that you're doing something wrong. It just means that you need some extra time to process, and you might need some extra support and some self-care there, which we will talk about those tools a little bit more later on. So I want to talk a little bit more about the impacting factors on resiliency and how resiliency gets impacted in general. So first off, there's the environmental factors and situational factors, and the nature of what you're going through really matters. It's the type and the severity of the challenge, a sudden trauma versus ongoing stress, the duration, how long did the stressor last, the timing of where are you in life right now and how prepared are you to cope with this issue, and the level of control. Research has shown that if we feel powerless, we can actually feel less resilient. If we feel more in control, we actually feel more resilient. More on that later as well. So then biological and developmental factors. Things we're born with or maybe are shaped by our experiences earlier in life, like our genetics and temperament. Some people are more emotionally sensitive by nature, that could be, but also childhood experiences play a big role in this. So early safety, support, or even trauma can influence our adult resiliency. And underneath this, I also want to emphasize these questions, like, for example, with the situational factors, it's like, what am I currently going through and what else is going on around me is an important question to see to gauge where you're at. The one for biological and developmental factors, what foundation was I given early in life? So that's a way to kind of gauge for yourself, okay, what do I think that impacts my personal resiliency in this phase? Then there's personal factors. So these are things within yourself that you can adapt. More on that more again. But mindset, for example, optimism, that believing in yourself that things can improve. Self-regulation, so managing your emotions and reactions. Problem-solving skills, figuring out what to do in difficult situations. Self-efficacy is also the confidence in your ability to cope. And coping strategies. What are your ways of managing stress? So previous experiences are also very important with this, because past challenges that you may have gone through can actually help you build resiliency, as we saw with the spring, and help you move up faster back again. And the question here to reflect on is, how do I show up for myself in tough moments? Like, how do I get through something difficult? What is my mindset like? Then social support. is really important. Support from others can really buffer the effects of stress by supportive relationships, by friends around, a feeling of belonging, feeling connected and valued. And then also access to resources is really important, like therapy, coaching, support groups, peer support, or even just like I said earlier, friends or people that are in the industry as well. So who is in my corner when things get difficult? The good news I want to share is that resiliency isn't fixed. So as we saw with the spring, it can be developed, and it doesn't matter where we're starting from. So researchers actually have found that traits like staying positive or keeping an optimistic outlook, and actually reframing failure as a learning opportunity also contribute to resiliency. And the best part about this is that these are actually skills that we can practice and improve over time. So I want to quickly have a check-in again, and I think there's going to be a poll up again as well with this one. How resilient do you feel at this time? And how confident are you in the ways that you can handle unexpected challenges? How well are you able to bounce back after a tough day or situation right now? And how supported do you feel by others when going through something challenging? And how often do you actually take the time to recharge or reset after something difficult has happened? Again, you can fill this out in the poll in your own time a little bit, and just take a second to think about this also for yourself. Thank you. Okay, I see some results coming up here. Thank you so much for sharing. I see some good resiliency points as well. Some people may be feeling a little lower on resiliency. Also, what I do see, which is very optimistic, is also how well are you able to bounce back. I feel like that is a fairly high amount for people. And competency also fairly high, actually, confident in your ability to handle unexpected challenges. So yeah, no, overall, I would say fairly good. People who filled out maybe how often do you take time to recharge or reset? If you do that lower, maybe at the final question, we can think about ways that you can implement a little bit more of that self-care for yourself. So thank you again so much for sharing your thoughts on this. So now we kind of know what resiliency is, and I hope it kind of speaks to what it is that you thought it was, or gives a little bit more clarification on resiliency. Now I want to move on to some of the tools that can be really beneficial when trying to build more resiliency for oneself. Starting with the mood meter, or the emotion grid, as I call it as well. And the first question here that I would like you to ask, and this is not going to be a poll, but just something for yourself to reflect on as we're going through this screen. How do I feel? Do I feel high or low energy? Does this feeling feel pleasant or unpleasant? Those are the kind of questions that you can ask yourself when looking at this mood meter. This mood meter has 4 color zones, as you can see. So it's red, yellow, blue, and green, and they kind of overlap a little bit because it's not very black and white, of course. Red means very high energy, unpleasant, meaning angry or anxious. Blue is low energy, unpleasant, for example, sad or tired. Green is low energy, pleasant, so calm or content. And yellow is high energy, pleasant. So for example, excited or joyful. So once you found the zone where you feel like you're at, choose a more precise word. For example, frustrated instead of just bad, or excited instead of just happy. And naming your emotion actually accurately helps you understand it and decide then what to do next. Whether you need to take a break, whether you need to reach out to someone, or just sit with the emotion and continue with what you're doing. So if I look at this, I would go for high energy, high pleasant. I feel optimistic and I feel motivated. So that's where I'm at right now. So this one is always very helpful. This is not just for resiliency. I would say that this is a very useful tool in general for yourself to check your emotions and to see where you're at any point. Then I want to move on to our next tool, which is the window of tolerance. The window of tolerance is a really helpful stress management tool, and it helps you also gauge where you're at. And when we're looking at this picture, I would like you to think of your tolerance, your window of tolerance as your emotional comfort zone. So in the middle, where we're at, feeling in control, regulated, and safe. It's the space where you feel calm and present and pretty much able to handle life's challenges. It's feeling relaxed at work, maybe with family, and handling daily stressors without getting overwhelmed. When you are out of your window of tolerance, it's called dysregulation. And if the stress keeps building, your body might go into survival mode, which is a natural response of your body. And you might feel fight, flight, or freeze. So fight meaning feeling angry or irritable. Flight meaning the urge to escape or to run away. Freeze is usually feeling numb, stuck, or shut down. And when we're looking at this window, again, from the middle going up, there are two ways that your body can react when you're dysregulated. On top, we see hyperarousal. This usually means when we're feeling overwhelmed or panicked or jumpy or angry. And below, underneath the screen there, you see hypoarousal. This is where we feel shut down, maybe spaced out, tired, numb. And these are the responses of your body trying to protect you, but they can sometimes be a little less helpful in the moment. So learning to notice these signs can help you calm down and come back into your window of tolerance, which is helpful to deal with these difficult situations. And how can this actually show up also even in the workplace, for example? Someone, for example, can be unkind, or someone might not be able to remember a lot of things. They might be very forgetful. In either of these situations, this person might not be in their window of tolerance, and they might be in the first instance of being unkind, could be hyperarousal, versus the person who's forgetful might be in hypoarousal. And it's not our job to solve it for others, but it's helpful to recognize it and to understand that like that's maybe where they're at, especially, of course, when it comes to ourselves. And to strengthen it for ourselves, this awareness about our dysregulations to be more resilient for stressors. And so resiliency is what helps us come back into that window. It's about staying steady, finding your balance, and to return to a space where you can think, feel, and respond to clarity, similar to that adjustment of that flight path that we just discussed earlier. So how do we know where we're at? If we're in hyperarousal or hypoarousal, I give you the screen. Again, this will not be a poll, but this is just to kind of give you an indication of how you can look at this for yourself. This one is also a scale of 1 to 5, 1 feeling least severe and 5 extremely severe and even paralyzing effects of hyperarousal. These could be feelings of anxiety, hypervigilance, or even addictions, chaotic responses, emotional outbursts, anger, rage. Those ones are very typical for hyperarousal. So if you feel like any of these emotions are coming up, this could be hyperarousal for you. Hypoarousal is more the freeze state. So same thing with the scale. 1 is the least severe and 5 is the most severe. Usually recognized by feelings of depression, low energy, numbness, maybe autopilot responses, shame and embarrassment, those kinds of feelings, shutdown, forgetfulness. So again, checking in with yourself, do I have many of these? Then it might be that you're in hypoarousal and you're kind of retreating. So to kind of reflect on these two tools that we just went through, what are the emotions that I am currently experiencing? So going back to the emotion grid, that's kind of the first step. Then what is my current state of regulation? Do I feel hyperaroused or hypoaroused? And what are the symptoms that I've just identified for myself to help me recognize this? What may have triggered also these feelings, and where do I feel that in my body? What do I need maybe to get this resolved? And how will reacting to my behavioral urges impact this feeling now versus maybe what will happen in an hour versus tomorrow? And what could I do instead to suit this feeling? If it wasn't maybe a a healthy coping mechanism, like having a drink or whatsoever, like, what else could you do? Could you maybe call a friend? Could you maybe go for a walk? Could you do something else to maybe make yourself feel better in the long term? Then here are some short steps to help self-regulate yourself. Like I said earlier, like, is there a response that would be also beneficial right now versus maybe the first response, wanting to maybe go for a drink or something like that? So some of these could be journaling, physical exercise, spending time in nature. And there's also a few apps like Calm or Headspace that help you with some mindfulness exercises. Those can be very helpful for deregulation or regulation again, and it helps because it offers structure support to calm your mind and regulate your emotions, and to make a more new decision, an open decision to that is different maybe than your first response would have been. And this is kind of like additional to that self-regulation piece. This is actually a very helpful tool to kind of help you see how your body also responds, and our happiness chemicals that we can somehow also affect. So the way I would describe it is to manually push some buttons for yourself to release some of these chemicals. And these chemicals, we can kind of shorten them as dose. So dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin. And when you are happy and have a positive experience, your window of tolerance will also naturally expand again. So by understanding how each of these chemicals actually work, you can trigger this release or push this button to improve a little bit of your happiness as best as you can. So these are some of the activities on here. For example, for dopamine, making a to-do list, because every time you tick off something from your to-do list, your dopamine levels will increase. Creating something, or writing, or making music. Meditation can help with dopamine as well. Oxytocin, physical touch, hugging, eye contact, socializing with friends or family, or listening to music. Those kinds of things for yourself could increase also the oxytocin levels. Then serotonin, getting sunshine outdoors, maybe even a cold shower, believe it or not, getting a massage, those kinds of activities can help with that. And then endorphin, laughter and crying, eating dark chocolate or spicy food, or doing something kind, or volunteering, those kinds of things. So these are actually some of the things that you can think of for yourself. Like, what do you enjoy doing? What makes you feel happy? What makes you feel motivated? And doing more of that also during a time that is challenging. Whenever you have the time and the resources to do them, remember this. Okay, I promise this is the last tool, but I find this one very empowering. So I just really want to spend some time on this one. This is called the circle of control and influence, and it provides a framework to focus your energy on what you can manage, while also recognizing and letting go of things that are outside of your control. So the main thing with the circle of control is that it reduces actually the feelings of helplessness, and it actually helps creating a sense of empowerment, especially in challenging situations. So the way it works is pretty much like draw two circles. Smaller circle goes in the center. So that's the circle of control. And the largest circle around it represents the circle of influence. And next step is to identify what's in your circle of control. And in the smaller circle, you write down everything you can directly control. So it could be your actions, your thoughts, your responses, routines, how you communicate with others. Then identify what's in your circle of influence. The larger circle, you write down the things that you can influence, but you do not have control over directly. So this could be the behavior of others. It could be advocating for change or policies, or the workplace culture, those kinds of things. Community building, those kinds of things are really helpful. And then the circle of concern. Outside of the circle of control and influence, we can write down the things that are outside of your control and influence. For example, weather, traffic, the past, historical events, those things. So by separating these areas, you can actually focus on your energy on what you can control and influence, which then, like I said earlier, it helps reduce stress, it increases your sense of empowerment, and again, leading to a little bit more power, like feeling empowered, meaning that we're feeling more resilient. this is what this could look like more generally. It empowers decision making. So this helps us also, if we look at the circle of control, if relationships is in our control and something we want to work on, we can actually take meaningful action in our lives. So we can start improving our communications or even our self-care, and therefore making more time also to spend more quality time with our families, advocating for our needs. Those kinds of things are directly in our control. This builds also confidence and reinforces that we have agency even in tough times. So again, feels more empowered, and we feel more resilient when we're feeling more in control. It also encourages healthy boundaries and helps us let go of the things outside of our control, over those things that are in a circle of concern, right? That is all out of our control and influence. So again, political shifts, the past, other people's behaviors, and we can actually focus on the things where we can make a difference. So it promotes focus, and instead of getting lost in everything that feels wrong or overwhelming, we can zoom in on what feels aligned and intentional, and we can take action. Yeah, so the bottom line, the circle of control and influence gives us a simple way to pause, regroup, and respond eventually with clarity rather than reacting chaos. And it's especially helpful, in my opinion, during stress or change. So this could be, something that I've thought of when it comes to uncertainty in the industry, and develop a plan based upon what you wrote down in your control and influence plan. So you could take some action steps. For example, list specific achievable actions that you can take immediately or over the next week or so. The circle of influence, consider how you can increase your impact. Maybe it's by having a conversation or adjusting how you engage with others or focusing on how to improve the direct environment you're in. And for areas outside of our control, and I cannot emphasize this enough, make a mental note to release them and focus your energy on your own reactions and decisions where you can. I think that one for me is really important to remember at times. So just wanted to give that. So when we're nearing the end of this presentation, and thank you again for your patience, and I really hope that these tools will be helpful for yourself or others. Feel free also to share these thoughts. But I want you to take a minute to reflect. I think this time with a poll again. What are you currently doing to build resiliency? Or what is one thing that you can actually do or add, one thing that you can do day to day? So is it that you're checking in with yourself regularly, or that you want to do that more of? Or are you currently spending time in nature, or have you not had the opportunity lately, and something that you want to reconnect with, moving your body, practicing mindfulness, connecting with friends or family, or even a therapist, focusing on the things that you can control or influence, celebrating your small wins or progress, and of course, the taking breaks and resting without feeling guilty. Like, what are maybe some of these things that you can do for yourself more? And if you can think of other ones, these are just suggestions, obviously. But yeah, maybe something you want to get back into. Oh, thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it. It's fun to see your responses live. Yeah, so I see some people wanting to spend more time in nature. Good idea, especially with summer coming up quick. Practicing mindfulness and breathing exercises. Again, those apps that I also mentioned in the past, the former slides. Talking with friends. Yep, it's good. Focusing on what you can control. I really hope I find the circle of control influence very helpful. So hopefully that can help you with that as well. Definitely celebrate more small wins and progress, because I think that's sometimes easily to overlook. All right. Thank you so much again for sharing these thoughts. Well, and then our final thoughts on today's presentation, and I would love to hear your feedback in general, but I would love to hear what your takeaways are from today's session together. And feel free to write it down in a poll, or to just think about what it is that you're taking away from this. And you can write it down for yourself as well. So it's a little reminder to yourself. Well, thank you for hopefully, getting something out of this and taking away some of these tools. I can still see the poll being up right now. All right, I don't see those written answers right now, but thank you so much for sharing if you did. And if not, that's totally okay as well, because again, this is for you. And I hope that this is something that you can take away and use for yourself as well. And that this is something that will help you through some challenging times. Thank you so much.
All right. I know that we had with the written answers, I know that there was some challenge in being able to see them, and so I just wanted to share with you what some of the answers were to the first one you
Oh,
had.
thanks.
Um, and so one of the answers was understanding and learning ways to gain resilience in stressful work situations, and so that was one. A second one was to understand the latest studies, to learn more about the subject matter, and to learn more about Clear Skies Ahead. And the last was additional resources for aviators. Um, and so I don't know if you wanted to take a second to kind of address those. And while you do that, I'll remind folks that if you want to have a question, or if you have a question that you'd like Reini to answer, go ahead and put it in the Q&A box, and I'll read those and share those. I also have a couple questions for you too. But first, did you want to address those first couple answers from your first survey, your first poll?
Yeah, I think first off, thank you so much for sharing. And I hope that I addressed a little bit of the research and a little bit of the usable tools during the presentation. I also wanted to say that if there are any questions and you're not wanting to ask them in public right now, or you're something comes up afterwards, feel free to reach out to me directly as well, to email me or something like that. Or if you want to have some of the worksheets, because I also have worksheets that fit with these, you're more than welcome to reach out to me, and I will send them over to you. So hopefully that can add a little bit of that dimension to have some extra tools and things to, like those checklists and stuff like that. Those are, I put them in the presentation, but if you want them, you can use them as well if you request them. So that's how I wanted to address that. Thank you, Rob.
No, yeah, of course. Thank you. And then I am now also seeing the answers from your last poll question, which was, what were your takeaways? And I'll just share a couple with you here in case you wanted to talk about those. That the control and influence seems to resonate with folks. That came up in several answers. This idea of focusing on what we can control and what we can influence, things inside and outside of that. Folks also found it helpful to hear the helpful ways to help themselves when they're feeling overwhelmed, self-regulation, and the actionable steps that you shared to increase resilience. So I don't know if you wanted to address those, but those were the key takeaways.
Yeah, no, and I love hearing that, because I think the circle of control and influence, unfortunately, personally, I've gone through some hardship over the past month, especially, and I feel like that really can help, especially also in combination then with the brain chemicals. I feel like those two go really well with each other too, where you make actionable steps about what you can do in hard times and maybe the things that you have to let go of in those moments. And I think the main question for me is always important, of like, what is my first response wanting to do, right? The autopilot response, in my opinion. For example, okay, if something hard happens, something difficult happens, I will be laying in bed and not wanting to get out, right? The depressive response, maybe. And then I think about, okay, which buttons can I now actively push? And I will be like, okay, I'm just gonna do my laundry right now. And like really those small steps. And once I start doing my laundry, which isn't my fun task, by the way, usually I walk my dogs first, but by doing like small tasks like that and crossing that off my to-do list, then I know that I already feel good thinking about the dopamine that I'm already hitting at that moment, So I think those combinations are really helpful sometimes. And again, I have a worksheet also on how you can take steps for yourself. For me, it's dogs. Maybe for you, it's going into nature or meditate or whatsoever. But I have a worksheet that you can fill out as well, to take those steps and have that as a reminder, especially when we feel overwhelmed and we might not always be able to think about the things that are good for us, and because being in bed and feeling depressed in that moment feels like what we need. But if we have that list somewhere on our phone, for example, we can look at it. It's like, oh, you know what, actually I do really want to just sit on my balcony in the sunshine, and that already can help you a little bit further on that moment. So yeah, very tangible small steps. It doesn't have to be major. I always want to emphasize that too. It doesn't have to be life-changing big steps right away either. It can be just, a small thing that you can do for yourself.
I think related to that, I'm reading the questions here that we have. Someone rightly pointed out that we're in an industry that's famously stigmatizing towards professional mental health treatment and services, and that the aviation industry has very unpredictable days, some days, and chaotic days. And so this person's wondering, what are some good daily practices, perhaps specific to an aviation environment, to help reinforce resilience?
Well, one that I kind of go back to, I feel mindfulness is usually one that you can implement fairly easy, even in your ride to the plane, before you start your day. Or one that I really like is just the breathing exercises. And I'm not talking about anything counting, but just to kind of calm your nervous system in the moment, because it would be kind of strange if you close your eyes and you're in the flight deck actively flying, and you close your eyes and you're going to count your breath. But sometimes when we do feel overwhelmed, it's just a breath in, and just like breathing in for like 3-4 seconds, and then holding it maybe for 3-4 seconds. Again, you don't have to count, but just whatever feels good. And then a very long breath out. And it's that breath out that really helps you calm your nervous system and to kind of like gather that brain space again. So I think those are my two main things that I would go to if you're really in action or away from home or things like that. I think also indeed finding things on your layovers that kind of give you purpose. Sometimes I work with people that have layovers or delays in middle of nowhere, and they don't really enjoy those layovers. Finding purpose, like learning a new language, or learning something new in general, or even exercising, and even if it is a shitty gym in your hotel, like to still go and just go maybe for a 10-minute walk while you listen to a podcast. That gives you a little bit more of that optimism, not something negative. Also in that moment, I would always try to kind of keep it upbeat, or something that you're truly interested in, than focusing on something like the news, or something that is trying to get you into that downward spiral again. Choose something that is more uplifting. So those are just a few.
No, I think that's great. And as you were answering and as a reminder to any of the attendees, if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the Q&A box that you can access at the bottom of the screen. But as you were mentioning kind of the aviation specific examples of how to build resilience and do self-care, it also made me think about your slide of fight, flight, or freeze. And what are some things that you think you see, especially among aviators, that aviators can be on the lookout for within themselves to determine kind of, has their stress overwhelmed them? Are they experiencing flight, fright, or freeze in an aviation space? What might be specific to aviators?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think definitely just looking out for those symptoms, right? Like, do you feel more anxious than usual? And that's not necessarily aviation specific, but I think to rephrase it a little bit more is like, okay, how am I feeling? Am I retreating? Am I not interacting with my coworkers as much? Do I isolate myself when I'm on a layover versus maybe I used to go for drinks, or doing something fun after the flight? Kind of like that, just a kind of a check-in of how your behavior maybe has changed, or if you feel again stronger emotions coming up, if you feel more frustrated with your FO than usual, and usually your patience is very high. Well, that might be an indicator that either the connection with this FO is not as good, or maybe you need to address that. Hopefully after the flight, not during. But yeah, I think also your general fuse might be a little shorter, and to really check in, like, what is going on, because maybe there are things going on at home, and I know that it's really hard to be away from home if something really difficult is going on. And so to just check in. And I know that a lot of peer programs like SOAR and stuff like that, they also have like this kind of mood check-in as well, like am I safe, and those kinds of tools. I don't know if people know what I'm talking about when I say those things, but I know that there's a lot of resources to kind of check in with yourself to say, you know, am I safe to fly? Where am I at? And these things, this mood meter or the window of tolerance, they are very similar in the sense that they kind of just help you gauge in the moment. So, you know, even if you're fatigued, right? Is it really because you're fatigued because you didn't sleep enough, or is it indeed because something else is going on that keeps you from resting, or, you know, feeling guilty when you're resting, or, you know. So I don't know if it's very aviation specific. I just think that the problems where it does occur, like being away from home and stuff like that, can just be a little bit more intense.
Great. Well, thank you for that. And I don't see any more questions. And so I guess I'll give you another chance. You mentioned like a worksheet that you had.
Yes.
I- did you want to take another second just to mention how folks might be able to get a hold of you and access those kind of
Yeah.
worksheets?
Sure. Well, you can find my info, I think, also through Clear Skies Ahead. If well, I won't. So you can always email me at Reini at emeraldmentalhealth.com, or just Google Reini and then therapist, you'll find me. There's not many Reinis, especially not in the US. Yeah, and of course, if you are connected with anyone here. But yeah, I would go either also to my website, emeraldmentalhealth.com. You can also visit there. And yeah, you can also just reach out. There's a form, I believe, on my website that you can reach out to, even if you just want to have some clarification on what I shared today, or some questions about mental health, or, you know, some support on finding mental health in aviation. I'm happy to support you in that regard as well. So yeah, I would say my website, or yeah, through my email, whatsoever, whatever works for you. So I hope that
Cool.
helps.
No, thank you for that. And thank you everyone for joining us today for Clear Skies Ahead's first webinar. And Reini, thank you so much for joining and sharing your insights and experience and your time with us. It was very helpful. We hope today's discussion sparked reflection and offered valuable tools for supporting your mental health and wellness, and the wellness of those around you. At Clear Skies Ahead, we believe that prioritizing your health is essential, not only for individual well-being, but for the safety and strength of our entire aviation community. If you found today's session helpful, please consider sharing Clear Skies Ahead with your colleagues and friends in aviation. We rely on the support of people like you to continue offering these kinds of educational events. A donation link is available in the chat, and you can always visit us at www.clearskiesaheadnonprofit.org to learn more, to get involved, or to support our mission. We'll be sending out a survey to get feedback from you. Your input absolutely is going to help us improve and plan future events that can meet your needs. Thank you again, everybody, for being here. And until next time, take care of yourself and each other. Safe travels and clear skies ahead.